Welcome to Edith's Quilts. We are back in the sewing room and I have finished sewing the mitts and turning them inside out. So they are now ready to have the binding put on them and the loop. We're going to start with the loop and we're using bias tape. And this piece is 5 3/4 inches long. We're going to sew down the edge of this so we can close the loop before we put it in the actual mitt. Didn't get my finger out of the way fast enough. And I have my presser foot on this time that has mine is called a J. And it's open all the way across, but I have my needle set so that it sews down the middle. And what I'm trying to do is close up the bottom half of this. So that when we bring the loop around, that the bottom half of this is closed up and it's not going to interfere with anything. So we want the mitt to hang straight, so we want to put the loop on this side over here. And in order for the loop to be included in the bias tape binding, we have to put the loop on and then put the bias tape binding on. So we're going to sew this loop right here on the edge. We're going to pin it so that we can keep it straight on the edge while we sew it. And this fabric is really thick, so it's not going to pin very well. Bent the pin. But the clip would be in the way for me to get started, so I can't really use the clip. So we're going to open this up. Put this underneath, and because we're sewing the bias tape, the edge of the bias tape, I'm going to just go across the end of this because all I want to do is tack it in place at this point. Then when we pull the loop up, it will be on this side, but it'll be the thickness of the bias tape so that we have enough loop to hang with, but yet not so much that it's in the way. Okay, then we're going to take our bias tape and we're going to fold in this end because I don't want to really miter it right here on the edge. So we're going to fold in the end. Fold it back over, and then we're going to start right here on the edge. And we're going to place this bias tape over the fabric, the edge of the fabric. And the fabric's pretty thick, so it's going to be a little tight. I'm going to use that big clip right there. We're going to come down here and we're going to use another big clip. And then we're going to get these little clips because I'd rather have the little clips going around it so that they're holding it all in place. Clips are a quilter's best friend. They're easy to put on and very easy to remove so that you don't hit them with your machine needles. And they do seem to hold in place really well. You see, I have a big box full. There's another box in the quilting room. once we get it all clipped on, then we'll start sewing it, but we're going to leave this end open so that when we get to it, we can turn it under and cover this. So then I kind of flatten this out a little bit so that we can sew it. And this is the thickest part right here at this seam and at the other seam. So we have to be really careful. We don't want to break our needles. These mitts are really thick and stiff because they've not been used or washed yet, so oops, tape pulled off. Okay, so we're getting to the end here. I cut the bias tape off some. I didn't want it to get caught up in the rest of the sewing. So now we have a little tag, little leg here, a little tag. We're going to take and we're going to fold it under, just like we did the other end. And we're going to bring it across so that it's actually covering the other end. So we're only going to have one little area. Then we're going to have to clip this on, and this is what gets a little testy. Because the fabric is so thick on this end down here. So we're going to clip that back over again. We're going to put that in, and then we're going to work in our fabric here. See, that end keeps coming unfolded, so we're going to just work it in this way. Then I'll go down here and open this and pull it across. Because this was also a point on this end, so we have to kind of work this so that it covers that point and goes across the point. There we go. One more clip. So I'm going to back up and I'm going to sew over part of the seam I already sewed just to make sure that we have this tight. And take that clip out. Make sure that it's back underneath. And get to the next clip. If you put the clips on right, they're really easy to come off. If you put them on backwards, you're going to struggle a little bit. And there you have it. One finished mitt.
Yay. So now you're gonna finish sewing the other one, and then you have the other two placemats made.
One placemat left to do.
So you gotta finish, so we'll do one placemat, and then you can show all of them together.
Correct.
Okay.
Welcome back to Edith's Quilt.
Camera's up here.
We have finished the Mississippi State placemats. They're funky looking shape, and that is because she has a round table, so that these can be placed on a round table and not interfere with anything. Then we have a set of mitts here, and then we had a little bit of extra fabric that I am making a little larger because this one barely holds a can, but it does hold a can. And this is an AccuQuilt pattern. There's an AccuQuilt die for it, but it makes it smaller. So we're fixing to make this little bit of scrap material that I had left into a koozie for her. So she'll have a little Mississippi State koozie that she can put her Coke bottle or a can or even a glass in. And what I've done is had to cut this manually because of the size of it. And there's a piece of Mississippi State, a piece of Insulate, and then another piece of Mississippi State fabric. And what we're going to do is we're going to zigzag around this part before we sew it together. So I have my machine set up to zigzag. And, got to thread it. Had to change threads. So we're going to zigzag the edge of this. So it's not a raw edge. If you had a serger, you could use a serger.
Where's your serger?
It's in a box over there. It needs to have maintenance done on it because it hasn't been used in many years. to do both sides. This just gives it a more finished edge. We're going to take a piece of bias tape and we're going to put it across the top and across the other side. This is not so thick, so I can hold this without having to clip it, but if you needed to, you could clip it. Well, maybe not. This end's not wanting to cooperate. There we go. Okay, back to change the stitching. We want to go back to utility stitches. Center. Let's put it on the edge. Cut this even with the edge. Spin this around and put it on this other side. These are very quick to make. And you can make them out of any kind of fabric. If you want to use neoprene, you can. If you just want to use regular fabric where you can throw them in the washer and not worry about the neoprene, you can. And there's just a piece of stencilate in the center of it so that it helps it keep it cool. Bobbin. So my bobbin thread is out. The bobbin has been reloaded. I thought I had enough on it, but apparently I didn't. We're going to put the other piece of bias tape on. Cut off the tail on this side and fold the two together. Then I'll get my 1/4 inch foot and put it back on. And sew the two sides. If you'll look on my cutting table, side of my AccuQuilt, you'll find a glass.
Glass of what?
Just a glass.
Don't forget you have 3 cutting tables. Or maybe 4.
So, little too big. Easy to solve. We're going to cut the seam where I put the 1/4 inch seam in. We're going to cut right down the seam. On both sides. Thus taking off a 1/2 inch. Because it is too big. And we're going to go back over here and we're going to use the 5/8 inch seam. That should be good enough. You can trim the 5/8 inch seam off once we check it. Nice fit. Little loose, but that's okay because that means she can use it for any size glass, and that was the biggest glass that I had, other than a large Yeti cup. So I'm gonna cut off a little bit of this 5/8 inch seam. Turn it inside out. And complete. Very quick, very easy, and very helpful. My brother-in-law saw one laying on my sewing machine when he was here that I had already cut out and said, oh, that's cute. So I took 5 minutes and made him one and sent it home with him. So he now has one that he can use for his cans and cups and whatever else he's got. I know they have a lot of Georgia Bulldog plastic cups from the football game, so he could use that in it and it wouldn't sweat all over everything. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.